Welcome to Philly Fortune Talks with your host, Jake Penny, where the city's brightest minds share the secrets behind their success. Are you ready to be inspired?
Welcome to another episode of Philly Fortune Talks, where we bring you the stories of Philadelphia's most innovative and influential leaders. Today, we are excited to introduce Cole Lyons, a dedicated healthcare entrepreneur making significant strides in the industry. Cole is the president and co-founder of the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy and senior partner for the Medicare engagement at Jefferson Health Plan. Currently pushing, what was that?
Sorry, I was just saying thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, not a problem. As vice chair and co-founder of the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy, Cole's committed to the excellence in consumer engagement and experience within the healthcare sector. In his role at Jefferson Health, he works as a senior engagement partner on the Medicare STARS team, bridging the gap between healthcare organizations and the communities they serve. His initiatives aim to create value at both the B2C and B2B level, directly benefiting the community. With a strong foundation in project management and process improvements, Cole leads initiatives that enhance the lives of both internal and external customers. His projects such as Jefferson Maps and PAP Toolkit, as well as building the largest database of administrative fellowship with AJHCS, underscores his commitment to improving healthcare access and outcomes. Join us as we explore Cole Lyons' journey, his innovative contributions to healthcare industry, and his relentless pursuit of excellence in consumer engagement and healthcare strategy. Let's get started on Philly Fortune Talks. Cole, pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me on. What a great introduction that covered so many different things. That was awesome.
Thank you. I mean, hey, for anything that I left out, can you give the listeners a little background of yourself and how you got started?
Oh man, yeah. I think we went all the way back to my population health days not too long ago. So I started off as a medical assistant, Jefferson Neurology. We at Jefferson have probably the best neurology. Of course, I'm a little bit biased, but I think the best neurology program in really the whole, Eastern US. It's incredible neurologists. And so as a medical assistant there, high volume practice, starting kind of at the bottom, but you got to see a lot of incredible things working with a lot of incredible doctors. And so I transitioned from there. I started my, undergrad program or transferred, I guess. And so went to Jefferson Population Health Department, got to meet some really cool people, got to meet some of the executives at the health system and developed an interest in business. And then, of course, I moved over to the health plan. The health plan's expanding a lot. It's one of the, the area's best health plans, consistently rated high. And so I moved over there to do process improvement for kind of our Medicare STARS team, really trying to make sure that the members are satisfied with the plan. And so from there, I met Saeed. We started work on the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy. He really brought me on as kind of a third or a fourth person. But I really have an operations mindset where I really like to make things run smoothly. I really like process improvement. And so I was able to kind of become the second in command of about 14 people under the board of directors. And so it's been a great experience.
That's great. So share a pivotal moment early in your career that significantly influenced your path on this journey.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think the population health working there was really interesting because I had sent a letter to Bali Yahia, Dr. Yahia, who's the president of Jefferson. And I did not expect him to actually meet with me. And he did. He agreed to meet with me. And so we had a great conversation. I did the same thing a little while later with Kevin Mahoney. And I actually had a question about something he had said in an article, and he agreed to meet with me as well. And so I started to kind of get on this path of meeting with these high-level executives in Philadelphia just to get their opinion and to get feedback. And sometimes it was harsh feedback, but it was really valuable feedback. And so I then tried to just start meeting with a bunch of different executives for networking. And I think what I discovered is they had really valuable advice. Not all of it I agreed with, not all of it I have listened to, but it's valuable. It's really valuable. And if I didn't agree with a piece of advice. I thought that someone else might. And so that's what really created that podcast kind of mentality in me, is that we need to share this advice. I would like to have conversations on the podcast. And, the podcast has done very well, but a lot of it is about democratizing knowledge and access in the healthcare strategy space. And so I think that, I think Bally Yahia, Dr. Yahia, I think, Rebecca Adkins, she's a great mentor of mine, SVP of Population Health. I think, of course, Kevin Mahoney and Dr. Klasko and all those kind of, high level people that seemed inaccessible for actually agreeing to meet with me.
That's awesome. That's really cool. They met with you, because a lot of, high achievers, or especially people in their position, don't usually meet with somebody. Or like, say for instance, our work, the book, if you ever read it. Um, the 4 Hour Work Week, they talk about reaching out to the celebrities of your industry, and they tell you how to go about it and whatnot. And it's, most people don't think to do that, right? They think they're going to be shut down, but you were like, no, let's do it. If they shoot me down, who cares? But if they do meet with me, they give me good criticism, bad criticism, at the end of the day, it's all great.
Yep. Yep. I have a 100% response rate, I think. And I think that the only reason is because I have actually done it. I have actually reached out, right? Like you said, people are a little too afraid sometimes to do that. I think I've had mentors that have been closer to my level that helped me to not be afraid to reach out. But I think, the only person who hasn't been able to meet with me, I think, is Madeline Bell of CHOP, and it's because her schedule is crazy. So I think that just putting yourself out there is probably the best way to do it. And honestly, when you get to meet all the executives in your organization, if you can, and all the kind of executives that are in the news, it gives you a much better picture for what's actually going on, because you see them as people and
Mhm.
not as, kind of like deities, or somebody who's like really high up. And so I do think I recommend at least giving it a shot. I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I still sometimes write written letters to people that I may not answer, or they may, it just depends. If they see that I have the guts to write them and try to meet with them, it's like, okay, they may. If not, no big deal. I don't mind. But your platform has gained substantial following and growth. What strategies do you think, or strategies that you actually put into fruition, that are key to your growth?
I think it goes back to that traditional kind of business advice, which is looking for a gap in the market where a gap where there's nobody filling that need. We talked about this before we got started too. That's what, kind of your thing was that nobody was doing this. And similar for me, administrative fellowship programs, no one's doing that. No one's been covering that, at least not extensively. And so we put out podcasts with administrative fellows that do very well. Part of the philosophy, though, I think that makes the podcasts go so wide and get such high engagement rates, especially we're like industry leading for engagement rates, right? I think the reason is because we actually focus more on the interviewees audience than our audience. So we
Mm.
actually look at who the interviewees connections are and what kind of content they want to see. And then when they reshare it, we gain a huge portion of new audience members. So basically every time that we have an interviewee, we pick up about 50 to 100 of their connections by doing that. And so also by doing that, we are targeting for our audience. So we've kind of had a build your own audience approach, and it's worked out really well. We've filled a great gap in the market. Also, Harvard Business Review, one of their methods that's worked really well is they started using Harvard Business Review case studies in a lot of business schools. And what they found was when these business, grads graduated and they went on to be executives, they still subscribed to Harvard Business Review. So we're using the same model with our fellows, is that we try to build really genuine relationships with our fellows. And that way, when they become executives, as some of them already have, we have a relationship with them. And that relationship is valuable to advertisers, but it's also really valuable to us because we can partner with their organizations to produce even better content that gets even more applicants towards their
Mm.
organization. So it's a kind of a full 360-degree model.
Yeah, a huge marketing web.
Perfect way to put
So
it.
yeah, yeah, I like it because it's like once you share something, once someone shares it, then their audience shares it, and then their audience shares it. You become part of this bigger ecosystem of their following, and it's like more eyeballs, all that stuff. So, what's a particular challenging project or period that you've gone through, and how'd you overcome it?
I think it's a good question. I definitely think there was 2 or 3 months where our engagement rates were going down, where our view rates were going down. And I think that will probably happen again. I think that I've learned how to deal with it, but I think it will happen again because that's just the cycle of how social media works and how business works in general.
Mhm.
What I have learned is that it does take a very long time to be successful and that some things are not worth existing. So I have kind of an approach where I believe the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy should exist regardless because it does a good thing. But whether we need to produce certain kinds of products or offer certain kinds of services, if the market says no, the market says no, right? We're not going to take a loss of 10, 20, $30,000. So we're launching Q soon, and Q is going to be a substantial investment risk. We're putting a lot of money behind that. And if it fails, we're willing for it to fail. And so I think what I've learned is learn when to cut your losses, but if you are sure about something, don't give up, but be careful on what you're sure about. You see some entrepreneurs, nothing wrong with this, but they believe in their idea so much that they're willing
Mhm.
to kind of do whatever it takes all the time for everything. And they end up working 120 hours a week, missing time with their family. A lot of, they develop kind of a toxic personality. Whereas you see other entrepreneurs who do whatever it takes, but only when it's really worth it. So
Right.
our numbers rebound drastically, and I'm sure they'll go down again, but I'm sure they'll rebound even higher. And so I do know what to fight for now and what to really put that time in.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like what Kevin O'Leary says on the Shark Tank. For ideas that don't work, that the market says are not good, he says take it behind the shed and put it out of its
Oh yeah,
misery.
I love that.
Don't keep throwing money into the garbage if it's not working. Only, and that's A to B testing, right? You test it out. If the market grabs, then you run with it, and then once it doesn't, okay, what adjustments can you do, and is it worth on keep going with that?
It's challenging because some of these ideas are people's passions that they really firmly believe in.
Hmm.
I actually am not really the kind of brain behind any of these ideas. I am the executor, and so I get them done, and I believe I get things done very very well. I probably am one of the more maybe not skilled but more driven people in terms of getting things done. I put in a lot of hours, and I try to do a very good job. But it is challenging when people's ideas do not turn out well or it's not the right time. So I think that can be really devastating for some people to give up their ideas or to have to postpone a really cool, invention or idea. But overall, seeing it as a learning experience, I think is the best way that, any negative could be turned into a positive.
Yeah, I can't, harp on that more. In school, failure was failure, and F was an F. They never actually like told you or asked or came up to you and said, "Hey, how can we fix this? What did you do wrong?" They were just like, "Here's a fat F. Go home, tell your parents." It was never like, "All right, let's how can we turn this into a win or a lesson learned?" And it's like there's no such thing as failure as long as you learn and don't make the same mistakes. But if you keep doing the same damn thing over and over again, that's the definition of insanity and expecting a different result.
Popular anecdote that I love to repeat that I saw on LinkedIn is about why do these failed CFOs and CEOs get hired like so fast after a company fails, and it's like because they know what not to do. And I think that is really valuable, right? Like you can turn around and know, hey, I'm not going to do this. I've seen how a company fails and we're not going to do it again. I think sometimes that backfires because some CEOs and CFOs are problematic, but I think especially CFOs, I do see a lot of them that when a company fails, they know the warning signs and they can go 10, 20 years without ever having a problem again. So I think it's a good practice to turn your losses into knowledge wins.
Yeah, it eventually becomes like deep wisdom as long as,
Yes.
again, as long as you learn from it. So, how was your role at Jefferson Health influenced your leadership style in running, your organization?
Yeah, that's a these are good questions. Jefferson's a really interesting place, and I think that there's a big distinction between where I first worked in neurology under Jefferson Medical Group, where I've worked in under enterprise and population health, and then now on the health plan. I think I've saw three drastically different styles of leadership. I really resonate with the enterprise level the most. I love the health plan, and the health plan isn't too different from enterprise, but I love the scale of enterprise, right? I love having 45,000 employees. I love having the idea of a massive organization. So I definitely think that has influenced it a bit because I like to think about things at scale. Right. And that's been very beneficial because when we come into a problem, we don't act like we're a Philadelphia only organization. We act like we're a national organization. We
Hmm.
think about our messaging and how it appeals to people nationally. We think about how can we get national or international hires. When we do business planning, we don't necessarily plan small. We plan long term, we plan big. My board of directors and my co-founders, they help me to stay on track, right? Because we're not big, so we can't, blow things out of the water, out of proportion. So I think they're a good balance. But that enterprise team has taught me to think large, right? Jefferson's only in Pennsylvania, New Jersey right now, but we're thinking, how can we be all over the country, right? They're playing a national game, and that's something that has left a deep impact on me. At the same time, the health plan is a lot smaller, 900 employees compared to 45,000. I love that I can message the CEO. I love that my desk at the office is 10 feet away from the CEO and I'm a low level, employee there. So that is also something that I want to imitate. And I think it's finding that mix between having a huge organization and then also having a CEO where a low level employee can sit next to them and they don't have to go through
Mhm.
bodyguards or something. So it's been a really cool mix for sure. And then of course JMG, that's a tough organization because they're dealing with really tough issues, right? They are dealing on the front lines with patients and members. And so I think that taught me how to prioritize your frontline staff. And that frontline staff is probably really your most valuable staff. And it could also be your biggest point of weakness. And I think JMG does a really good way of managing their staff. Overall, their doctors are treated really well. We've had issues with nursing staff in the past not reporting good outcomes, and I think we've done really well at turning that around. And I think JMG is soon going to be seen as an excellent place to work for nurses. So if it isn't already, so I think those three different kind of organizations have taught me three different styles of management. That's all been very valuable.
So you talked about building teams. So when you go or when you already have been building your team at the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy, but from the past and moving forward, what qualities are you prioritizing and why?
I really enjoy building teams. It's probably one of the things that I enjoy the most. I am responsible for all of the board members and the investors, and so that was part of my job was to get uh, the board members collected, the potential ones, and then introduce them to Saeed, the founder. And so I've really enjoyed that building experience. The biggest thing that I look for is that commitment to mission, right? That is so important. It's okay if people aren't, and I'm not saying that if you're not super pumped and excited about our mission that I'm gonna, throw your application in the trash or something. But you can take a bad application, somebody who is a assistant manager or manager of a McDonald's. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're a manager of a fast food place." If this manager with management skills is passionate about your mission, they're going to be better than someone from, Wharton who's just trying to get a cool internship or something, right?
Yep.
So I think that passion and drive to mission overcomes so many problems and it overcomes so much. Humility is great. I think it's important. I think that it's good to have a balanced level of humility. I think it's one of the most important skills. I'm over humble sometimes, I've been told. And so, like with this podcast, I'm trying to come on and say, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, instead of always, letting other people take the, I guess, credit for things. And so, a balanced level of humility, but it's that mission, at Jefferson too, right? The I Improve Lives mission. Are we going to work every day with that attitude that we're going to improve lives? I think where Jefferson's had problems, they could probably attribute to not, to people not always adhering to that mission, right? And I think the same way for the American Journal, where we've had problems, it's been that we're not always in line with our mission. And when you look at, Dr. Cashone, Dr. Yahia, all the executive staff at Jefferson, that from the beginning of their career, it's been their goal to improve lives. I think the whole enterprise is committed around that goal. And I think it's the same thing at the Journal. We all want to improve healthcare and healthcare strategy access. And I think that's why we're really on track.
Yeah, I mean, you have to invest in people that see the mission, the vision, they have the culture, right? And just people like a great people person, like you said, someone at McDonald's can totally outweigh a robot that has a great application from Wharton, right? They're just it, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But they're more trainable, right? They're not stuck in their ways, or hey, I have this crazy degree or whatever from Wharton and I'm maybe better than you. Who knows? But my mom says the same thing. You just said that, you always try to stay as humble as possible. My mother always says, no matter how successful you are, always remember to be humble and kind. So that's
I love
awesome that
that.
you live by that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
You
excellent
know,
advice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Your professional commitments are pretty demanding, right? You're at Jefferson, you're running a full-time journal as well. What does your daily habits and routine look like on a daily basis so you can stay focused and effective, like juggling everything?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I do not have that down yet. It's not been easy. My wife is very supportive. I think that's the biggest one, is having a wife that's very supportive. I think
Mm.
the recognition that I am doing things that are probably unhealthy in terms of the workload, and then going from a minimizing harm approach instead of like a maximizing performance approach is really important. And so I do see on the horizon where I'm going to try to lessen the workload in a few different areas. Biggest way to do that for my approach is operationalization, right? So have SOPs that are really solid, start outsourcing. But honestly, I have not done well at that. And during our last board meeting, the board of directors told me, we need to get you an assistant because you're going to burn yourself out. And I didn't want to get one because it costs money, right? And excuse
Of
me, and
course.
I'm more than happy to, stay up till 2 a.m. and get up at 7 and just do that. But they could tell it was taking a bit of a toll. And so they said, let's go spend some money on some tools. Let's go spend some money on having a couple of staff, brought in that are paid that can really help you out. And so that's a big blessing. But I use a notebook as well. That's something I recently started doing, to write my ideas down, to write my schedule down in. It helps me not be on technology for it, to not feel like I'm always like locked into Microsoft all the time, having like
Oh
an
yeah.
actual paper notebook. So that's been really helpful. I also separate my tasks very well. And so it's technically two full-time jobs, right? But there's conflict of interest issues. There's all these questions about that. When I'm at work with Jefferson Health Plans, I'm at work with Jefferson Health Plans, right? During lunch, of course, I might go and have a phone call or something. But during my time working in there, I'm fully committed to doing that work. When I'm off the clock, I'm fully off the clock. I'm not thinking about my work at Jefferson Health Plans. I'm focusing on the journal. So that's also how I do it. But overall, I probably would not necessarily recommend it in terms of like the health approach. If I wasn't also a student at the same time, it would probably be a lot more reasonable. So that is my advice for people, is just to realize that like doing kind of two full-time jobs and being a student, probably not the best idea. And we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's a student as well. Yeah. So you have three workloads on you in the same amount of time every single day. So that's a lot. I've built our companies, my wife and myself, and for a while there, I was burning the midnight oil, lighting that candle as long as I could until my eyes shut, and it did become unhealthy. My health started deteriorating and started losing myself, and that's when I realized, like, damn, I need to delegate. Yeah, everything's fine and dandy. We can afford to hire an assistant or a VA or whatnot, because there's like five pillars of wealth. Like wealth, people just think money, right? That's
Yep.
not it. It's health, wealth, love, happiness, relationships, contribution. Like they're the pillars, all the pillars of wealth. So it's like, how can you balance all of them? Or if you're not a believer in balance, like a lot of people, oh, work life balance. Okay, that's not really the easiest thing. So how about work life integration, right?
Yeah.
How can we do that? So that's a step moving forward to be a healthier business owner, for say,
Oh yeah, you got to take
just
that
from my
step.
experience.
Yeah, you got to take that step and start delegating. I mean, that's the like that's my biggest advice for people who still want to perform, at a high level, and still are going to have to do some unhealthy things, is to try to delegate as much as you can. Sometimes take a loss, right? Like I have to block out my weekends now. Like I'm not going to be doing interviews on the weekends anymore, just because it's not like worth my my health, right? I'm going to do my
Yeah.
boxing lessons Saturday morning. I'm going to spend more time with my wife on the weekend, be able to take vacation days on the weekend. And so I was working 12 hours both, Saturday and Sunday for the past 7, 8 months. And so that just doesn't, it's not sustainable at that level. And so, yeah,
No.
delegating and like you said, being reasonable, right? Like not, things aren't going to completely combust just because we have 2 days that are delegated to other things.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's for sure. That was always the FOMO, the fear of missing out. If I don't stay up until 2 in the morning, what isn't getting done? What by not doing that, you know, how is that shortcutting my success? How I may not get there as quickly as I wanted to by not staying up at 2 a.m. Then I realized, like, okay, that's not people need to sleep, right?
Yep.
But you know, for personal development and like mindset, is there any books or podcasts besides your own or mentors that have, had significant influence on your approach to healthcare and leadership?
Yeah, I think the Morning Brew is a great one because it helps you capture some industry trends at large, helps you capture like economics that are going on in the industry. I think trying to have a macro approach for me has helped, because everything that we get frustrated about and everything that kind of goes on in the healthcare industry that's infuriating is a very tiny, tiny little piece of something that's way bigger. So I like to stay grounded in just the general finance news, even though it rarely ever directly applies, just so I can have a sense of the larger economy. I think for mentors, I have had some really great mentors. I've had a few people at Jefferson Health Plans. I think, Kat Ketter is an excellent mentor. We have a group mentoring session I'm involved with. I have a mentor through the ACHE. I'm involved heavily with the ACHE. I try to go to conferences quite a bit. I really enjoy conferences. In all honesty, conferences are like vacation for me. They're relaxing
Oh,
for
yeah.
me. I enjoy the experience. Yeah, so I knew for some people they hate conferences, and I totally understand. But for me, I could go to like an American Public Health Association conference, and I could just like relax there and like take it all in. I do try to read. I read, some medical journal articles. My reading has shrunk a little bit more than what I would have liked it to. Thankfully, with my MBA, coursework, I'm given a lot of excellent supplemental readings. Harvard Business Review case studies, especially the healthcare ones, really, really good because it helps you be aware of the potential places for failure, the potential areas for success. So those are excellent. But I think that all of those are good. I don't want to shout out our competitor Becker's, but Becker's produces really great stuff. And to say that they are a competitor is kind of a joke because they're, 300 or 400 times our size. But a lot of Becker's news is really interesting, especially when you combine it with those kind of like nation or global wide financial reports, because you begin to kind of connect the dots a little bit, and it can be kind of a fun mental exercise. and it gives you again that macro approach to things. For me as well, somebody who has like anxiety disorder, looking at things from a macro level actually relieves my anxiety a lot because I don't get so tied up in thinking that I have to impact all these changes and do all of these
Mhm.
like hugely impactful little tasks. I can just kind of try to do my impact on the larger scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love how you say you converses because I'm all about I go to many like mentorship masterminds, conferences because I make a vacation out of it too.
Yeah.
Like, hey, as a business owner, you're going to a conference and it may be in Florida. Well, hey, I'm gonna hit the beach a few days too, but it's all
Oh
still a
yeah,
tax write-off.
of course. You have to. You have to. And Pennsylvania's beer laws are pretty strict, and so it's great to get outside of Pennsylvania. You get some more exotic beers and things like that. So, I always use that opportunity. I was just in Boston a couple weeks or a couple months ago now, and they had a huge beer selection at one of the stores there, and so I did that after the conference, went and picked a few out, and so it's those little things too that I think make it really enjoyable.
Nice, man. I'm not much of a beer drinker. I'm more of a tequila guy, but if
Oh,
I were to drink beer, it'd be Japanese beers. I've
oh
always
wow,
loved Japanese beers. But
impressive, impressive.
thank you, thank you. Exciting projects are on the horizon for the journal and what are your long-term goals?
Yeah, the journal is a big part of it is that operationalizing of the interviews. So we want to make it so that we can produce these 5 to 6 days a week. Excuse me, 5 to 6 days a week with, if I'm not available or if I'm on vacation, they keep coming out. And if even if all of us are on vacation, we have a way of making them so that they can keep getting produced. That's the next kind of internal big project. Our interns are incredible. Shouting out, the person working on that project, Cameron Parent. He's awesome. He's been taking the lead on that project really well. We also have Zara Siddiqui and Amalia. I'm not going to pronounce her last name, so I forgive her for that. But our 3 interns so far are doing incredible work. And so they've been working on making it so that things are more operationalized. Now, my end of things has shifted to Q. It's pronounced K, or it's spelled Keui. So it sounds like QE, but it's pronounced Q. That is essentially going to be the Amazon for healthcare consulting. And it won't be as big as Amazon, of course, but in terms of e-commerce, online shopping, it's going to be as easy as shopping on Amazon to purchase healthcare consulting services. And so that's what we're working on now, looking for a hard launch in about August. So this is kind of the first public information, I guess, that's out there is on this podcast. But yeah, we're bringing on about 15 to 20 consultants for the first round. And they're essentially going to help us build some incredible product packages on Q. We're bringing on lots of freelancers as well, lots of contractors, both stateside and overseas, quite a large amount of people to help us really build this site out, build this service. It's going to have some AI capabilities. Really, it's just going to be a smart search engine, but it still will say AI capabilities, which is exciting. And so that's been a big project.
That's really neat. There's like something similar, like that online e-commerce portal platform for like CEOs. Like if you want to have a conversation, I forget, I can't for the life of me, I can't. Maybe it's founders or something like that.
Mhm.
But you can have that conversation with a random CEO that's at a company that you totally admire. So that's awesome. You're doing it for the healthcare industry and having consultants on there and whatnot. That's awesome. For anybody that's, looking to aspire in healthcare or an entrepreneur looking to make a significant impact, what would be a piece of advice you would give them?
Uh, I think to just do it. I think that's the biggest thing. Advice they've probably heard before. But I am not an important person, right? And so it is interesting, right? I get letters and invites to things that are kind of funny, and even like the invite in this podcast, right? And but I'm not really an important individual or anybody really special. I think just doing things is the best way to get recognized and is the best way to make impact. If you're not doing anything, you're not going to make an impact. And so I think learning to be targeted in what you do is excellent, especially if you're maybe over 25 or over 30, it might be a bit easier. But when you're in your early 20s, you're kind of just figuring things out. You might have to go with the shotgun approach, right? And just try a bunch of different things, meet a bunch of different people. I have met hundreds of people so far this year. That's been something that's been transformative for me because I get ideas, I get connections, I feel grounded, I feel like I'm a Philadelphian, and that's been a huge boost to my entrepreneurship. So I think just getting out there and doing stuff, don't hold yourself back, make yourself feel uncomfortable. All of that is the biggest, piece of advice is just getting out there.
Yeah, the spray and pray model. Spray and pray, run with what works, and then, like we said before, what doesn't, take behind the shed and just.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So for our listeners that want to connect with you or learn more about the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy, where's the best place for them to go?
I'm a big LinkedIner. Someone asked me the other day, they said, do you meet or do you know in person all of the people who you connect with on LinkedIn? And so one of my goals is I actually go through my followers and the people I've connected with, and I try to set up one-on-ones with most of them. And so please connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a one-on-one with anyone. Fill up my schedule with one-on-ones if you'd like. Happy for it. The American Journal of Healthcare Strategy on LinkedIn is large as well. We have a good following, some newsletters. And then coming out in the next 1 to 2 weeks is one of our biggest investments. We have the new ajhcs.org website. It's going to be huge. Lots of new features. A really, really well done website. Our designer, Zach Carsey, he's a healthcare design professional. He's also on LinkedIn under Zach Carsey. So really be on the lookout for that website, but follow us on LinkedIn, add me on LinkedIn, and we can definitely connect and chat.
Awesome, Cole. Well, it was a pleasure having you on Philly Fortune Talks.
It was a pleasure being here. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Philly Fortune Talks with Jake Penny. Inspired to share your success story? Visit phillyfortunetalks.com/guest and let's inspire together.